Distributive property. We're going to solve for x. Here we have a set of parentheses and we have the number -6. And -6 is next to this parentheses. That means that this is a multiplication question. And in this case, it means that everything inside of the parentheses needs to be multiplied by -6. Before we get started, I want to talk to you about subtraction questions in large equations like this. When I see a subtraction symbol, what this actually means here in this case is that this 10 is a -10. Like if I had nothing and I said -10, then I would be at -10. So in this case, the number 10 is negative. And that can get a little bit confusing when I'm solving a multi-step equation because I might forget that this is a -10 and I might treat it like it's a regular 10. Or when I'm carrying down my addition symbols and my subtraction symbols, I might forget that this is a minus. I might get confused because I'm so used to writing addition. My thing that I like to do for myself, and I like to teach people, is that if whenever you see a subtraction symbol, not a negative, because see here, this is -6, but a subtraction symbol. Whenever I see a subtraction symbol, I turn it into an addition. But if I turn it into addition, then I need to change the value of the number after it. We can't just go willy-nilly and make things up. So if I'm going to turn this into an addition question, then I'm going to flip the value of the next number. So now instead of saying -10, it says plus -10. And that sounds silly and that sounds extra, but that's okay because that is why we have calculators. When it comes to stuff like this, use your calculator. We're not going to make silly little mistakes if we are making sure that we put our numbers into the calculator. So here we go. That was my first thing. So now that I know, and I'm going to treat this like a plus -10, what we need to do is we need to evenly distribute this -6 to everything inside of the parentheses. So the first part would be to say -6 times x, and the next step would be to say -6 times -10. So let's do that first step. -6 times x. If I have 6 x's, or in this case, 6 negative x's, how many x's do I have? I have -6x. So -6 times x is -6x. I'm going to bring down this addition symbol. And then the next step would be to say -6 times -10. Now, I know that negative times negative is a positive, but in case that is one thing too many for your brain to remember, it is perfectly acceptable to say -6 times -10, and that is positive 60. So I'm going to say 60. -6 times -10 is positive 60. And we have already brought down that plus sign, so I'm going to bring down my equal sign equals 30. So now I have -6x plus 60 equals 30. We're just going to go ahead and continue to solve for x. And what we have means this side of the equation is equal to this side of the equation. So I'm going to draw my line down the equal sign. And what that does is it reminds me that whatever steps I take on the left-hand side, I need to also take on the right-hand side to keep the sides balanced and equal to each other. I have x. We need to get it alone. X is being multiplied by -6. But we cannot worry about that portion of the equation until we take care of the fact that 60 is being added to it. We want to get rid of this 60. So if 60 is being added, then we need to do the opposite. And the opposite of adding is subtracting. So we are going to subtract 60 from both sides. On this side, if I have plus 60 and then I have minus 60, that's going to cancel the 60s out. On this side, I have 30 minus 60. For a lot of us, we're like, yes, I totally know what to do. That makes sense. And for the rest of us, it is, again, never shameful to use the calculator. Use the calculator. We have a positive 30. We are going to take away 60, and that leaves us at -30. So I can bring down my -6x here, bring down my equal sign. -6x equals -30. So now we are one step away from getting x alone. X is being multiplied by -6. The opposite of multiplication is division. So we're going to, instead of multiplying by -6, we want to divide by -6. Whatever I do here, I do there. And the negative multiplication and the division will cancel the -6's out. Over here, I have -30, still there from before. We're going to divide -30 by -6. It's a positive 5 because a negative divided by a negative is positive. So here I have x, bring down my equals, 5. X equals 5. We are now going to check our work by taking this x, the value of 5, and wherever there's an x in our original equation, we're going to replace it with the number 5. Let's do that right here. So I have -6, parentheses, 5, and I'm going to go ahead and write the original equation, especially since we have a calculator and we have all of our numbers solved for. So instead of, I'm just going to add -10 equals 30. So -6 times 5, because remember, my -10 equals 30. Let's do it. So PEMDAS says parentheses first. So we are going to do what is in the parentheses first. And in parentheses, we have 5 minus 10. We can do that here. We couldn't do that here because there was an x. So we can't, that doesn't help us, right? We couldn't take 10 away from x because we didn't know what x is. But now we do. So we can do PEMDAS. We can say what is in the parentheses. 5 minus 10 is -5. And again, we have a calculator. If I have 5 and I minus 10, -5. -5 is being multiplied by -6 because -6 was on the outside of these parentheses. So that's a multiplication question, equals 30. The negative times the negative is a positive. So -6 times -5 is a positive 30. 30 equals 30. And this is a true statement, which means that x is in fact 5. Good job.